Craig from fixitfallows, and today I am bringing you finally an update and full progress on my Shimano Deore BL-M615 brake lever hinge pin. Here we are. Here is my brake lever. It is now back together, fully functioning, and this is utilising a hinge pin that I've made myself. It's fully demountable. You can undo it, take it out, service this brake lever completely in the way that Shimano never wanted you to do. So assuming you've seen my original video from 2 years ago where I ground off the head of the hinge pin in order to get this brake lever off, in order to get into the piston assembly, assuming you've watched that, then you're going to be interested in this hinge pin. So let me give you a close-up, in detail picture of how it works and a bit of an explanation as to why I've ended up with this setup. So here we are. This is the view from the top, and from the top you can see you have what appears to be a Phillips headed screw. Okay, so in all intensive purposes, effectively that's what it is. This is A2 302 stainless steel, and it passes through all of the body of the brake, through the brake lever, through the rocker assembly there, and then emerges the other side where it is kept in place by an A2 302 stainless steel nylock nut. So obviously this won't be going anywhere, and you can undo it and take it all out should you wish to remove the brake lever and get access into here. Okay, now I admit this is not the most aesthetically pleasing setup. Originally I'd hoped to do something a little bit more satisfying to the eye, something that looked a little less rudimentary. However, after pursuing many different designs, and ones that would involve considerable amount of machining, possibly outsourcing to manufacturers, the costs were just prohibitive. In order to commission some tooling to create a pin that went through there that wasn't effectively a screw, something that had a circlip or a hidden grub screw, or just a multitude of different options. The tooling, the costs were so large. All the cost is in the initial setup, and as with anything, it's economies of scales. If you're going to be looking to shift huge volumes, then that's fine, but realistically that's not going to be the case with this. I mean, this is a long since sort of left behind design of brake lever. So arguably how many are there out there in the wilderness still being used? So in the end I've had to go for something that is functional, or should I say more function over form. So anyway, that is it. I can assure you that the clearances there, if you run B spec, are sufficient to mount everything back, all your hardware back onto your B spec fitting, and there's no interference there at all. That's all good. And like I say, it's in stainless steel, so it's got an element of weatherproofness there. So the next thing for me to do is dismantle this and show you how to reassemble this. And in actual fact, if you do it in a particular way, it's very straightforward. Okay, so here we are, it's all stripped down. Now, as I said, if you've watched my previous video where we ground off the head of the hinge pin, you should be familiar with all these pieces. Okay, so we have the actual brake lever itself. We have the rocker mechanism there that translates the lever pivot action into a different direction of force in order to push this plunge piston into the piston chamber, which moves the oil through to your brake caliper. And then this little spring here, all that does is does that spring back motion. You know, it's like a crash forward, crash back. I don't know what you want to call it. I'm not quite really sure why they designed it in. But this effectively provides the springy action in the lever. And then this is the hinge pin that I've made, okay? So there we are. There's the nut, which we can take off. And it goes there. We've then got these two barrels. That's how I call them, two barrels or collets. These again are A2 302 stainless steel. So they come off, and then you've got the stainless steel screw. Now the reason why we have all these components is that the hinge pin has to be several different diameters in this setup. So you can see that the hole through the middle of the rocker is of a different diameter to the hole in the brake lever. Okay, the hole in the brake lever is the same as the holes in the body of the brake. Now those holes there are created by those plastic inserts that go in there. They are what creates the wave function that Shimano refers to. So as the plunger goes in, that plunger follows some wiggly lines in there, and that creates different levels of pressure depending on the point at which you're squeezing the lever. So that makes this hinge pin have to be quite complicated. So you see the screw has to pass through there, and that is a rather irregular size hole. Yes, it could have been drilled out to be a less of an irregular measurement, but then you're weakening this part, okay? So with this setup, there has to be no modifications to any parts in this brake lever. So anyway, so the screw effectively passes through there. You then use the collet barrel to go back over the screw. That brings the diameter back up in order to match up with the diameters on the body of the brake and the brake lever. To create a one-piece pin that had all of these, different dimensions along its length would require a lot of tooling and machining. The little lathe that I had, it doesn't have sufficiently good tolerances to do it, and as I referred to before, if I was to outsource this to someone else to manufacture, because of the dimensions, which are a little bit irregular, they wanted a lot of money to do this. So this is what I've come up with, and I think it's a neat solution, relatively cost effective, and it does exactly what it needs to do. So there we are. All that's left for me to do is show you how to put this all back together. Right, okay, let's get this all put back together. So we have got all the parts, the components, the lever, hinge pin, the rocker, the spring. I also recommend you have two small Allen keys. I believe you need them to be smaller than 2 millimeters. You need a Phillips headed screwdriver, and you need something to do up the nut, and for that I'm using a 7/32 socket. I've also mounted the brake lever onto a pair of handlebars here, just so that they're held nice and steady, and that you should be able to get some kind of view of what I'm doing whilst I'm filming it. Right then, here goes. So let's take the rocker, and you need to hold in it like that. This section goes kind of underneath the roller on the plunger there. Okay, we'll put it in like that. We then take the brake lever and offer that down in as well, like so, and then using your index finger and your thumb, just kind of hold the two there together. Then take one of your Allen keys, and offer it through the hole, teasing it through both the brake lever and the rocker so it emerges back out the other side, and that holds it all together, you see, like that. And in actual fact, look, the brake actually works. You can feel the plunger getting pushed into the cylinder of the body. Okay, so that effectively is held together, but not very effective out on the trails. Now then, what we now need to do is take this your hinge pin, so the screw and one of the collars, and we are going to push it onto the end of your Allen key, and then we're going to withdraw the Allen key and help guide the screw through all of the holes. Okay, it's a little bit fiddly, but this is how you do it. Okay, and that through it comes. Okay, so now we need to get the spring into the setup. Now the spring goes between the brake lever and the rocker. Okay, not the brake lever and the body of the brake. It goes between the brake lever and the rocker. And the long section with the U-shaped bit presses down on the body of the brake lever, and the short section with the L bend presses on the underside of the brake lever. Now, in order to get that in, we will need to retract the pin out a little bit, because the pin effectively passes through this round section of the spring. So we may need to use the Allen key again idea to push the screw back through, but let's just have a little go first of all. Let's start retracting the hinge. Now it's got to retract far enough to create space for this spring to pass down through. So it's a case of trial and error. This is the fiddliest bit. Doesn't make for great videoing, doesn't make for great viewing. Here we go. See, the thing is, as you retract the hinge, because it's not fully supporting the rocker twists, and it inevitably twists in a direction that limits the space for the spring. So in that instance, you may want to take a small screwdriver and manipulate the rocker over sideways to create that aforementioned space. So I'm just going to try and lever that over in there. I think that might have done it, and then we can drop the spring in there. There we go. Just push it over a little bit more. There we go, the spring has dropped down into position. Let me show you that in there. Yeah. Okay, now we need to push the hinge pin back through. Let's try and back through it comes, like that. Now, what's happened here is the U-shaped part of the spring has dropped down in there, and it needs to be sat against this profile with this face here. So it's a case of just trying to hook it out. So hook it up. There we go. So there you see, that's where it wants to sit. U-shaped bit pressed against the body of the brake lever, L-shaped bit against the underside of the lever. So now we're in a state here where we have the hinge pin in place, the spring is back in, so we've got all the spring in this, but we have play in the hinge. That's because we don't have the lower collar on yet. So we've got to offer that on. Also at the moment, you'll see that this screw is not fully through the mechanism. So the collar on the top side has not yet gone through the larger diameter hole on the brake body. So that will require a little bit of jiggling around. So you just kind of twist the brake body like that and push with your thumb, and now you see the screw's gone through, fully extended at this end. So we can now take the lower collar barrel bit and offer that into the hole. And again, it's got to get through the body of the brake lever, so wiggle the brake lever around, and then you can push on the barrel like so. The barrel also needs really to pass through the hole in the spring, so that might just take a little bit of wobbling around to get it in like that. There you go, it's in. Now we can put the nut on. Hold the screw in place with the Phillips headed screwdriver and do the nut up. Now you don't have to torque this tight to like ridiculous amounts, but you can do it up sort of, you know, a reasonable tightness like so. Okay, and that's it. The brake lever is now back together. It springs forwards, plunges back, the spring is in situ, everything is good to go. This can be put back on the system, your hose lines connected back up, oil put in the system and bled as you've no doubt done 1,000 times, and that brake is now good to get back out on the trails. And you can take it apart and clean it. You can even put in a new piston plunger in there, which you can get off AliExpress. There you go. So there we are. Thanks for bearing with me. I know it's a little bit tedious to watch, but you know, it is doable. If you are interested in getting this pin from me, just send me a message on the video, and depending on how many people reply, will tell me whether I should manufacture any more, and then I'll put them on eBay. I'll put all the details on the comments on the details of this video. So just let me know. Thanks for watching. Please be sure to give me a thumbs up and subscribe as ever, and check out some of my other videos. Cheers.